Hi, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying the event. Our next speaker, if you haven't met her yet in the breakout room, is Yasmin Guerin. She's the founder and CEO of Negotiatress, an initiative to help women negotiate authentically for themselves without feeling like they have to give up on their identity. She is a certified mediator and a group facilitator. She has over 10 years of experience in conflict resolution in the political, NGO, and private sector. She's going to talk about how to miss out on your potential. Let's welcome Yasmin.
Thanks, Victoria, for the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me well.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for the introduction and great talk to follow. So thanks, Ellen, for that wonderful talk. I'm going to talk to you today about how to miss out on your potential. Hopefully you've understood that that's tongue-in-cheek. So what as Victoria mentioned, what I do is I work with women on their negotiation skills. And I try not to say that I'm a negotiation coach, because I try to do a bit more than that. I try to help women reshape their role in society, or renegotiate their role, renegotiate the space they're in, more than just salaries, more than just getting a raise or a title, but really taking ownership on who we are and who we want to be in society. And I started my business about 2 years ago, when I kind of realized that, it dawned upon me, it took time, but it dawned upon me that lots and lots and lots of women have lived and died not having fulfilled their potential. And it's as easy as that for that to happen. And I kind of felt like women, for generations and generations, women have been fighting to reach a place where they can fulfill their right to feel their full potential, and be who they want to be. And not just like in terms of, I want to be equal to men, I want to be who I can be. And this was a very, very daunting realization to make, and this is why I started my business. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 points that I found very important in how you could miss your potential. I'm going to try and share my screen. I hope it's going to work easily. Let's just close all these. Sorry, this is small hiccup. There we go. Okay. So how to miss out on your potential in 3 points. These are 3 things that I find that come up with a lot of the women that I work with. And it's something that has to be worked on to reach that situation where you can really comfortably take ownership on where you want to go and who you want to be. And the first one is being paralyzed by inaction. It's needless to say that whether the workforce or in personal relationships, we face a lot of challenges, and those challenges get more and more daunting as we go through life. So when I was very young, I sort of thought, wow, the world is my oyster, and I'm just going to do all these things. I'm going to achieve so many things. I have so much that I want to give, and I was sure that it was going to work out. And then reality happens, and reality is oftentimes hard. And then the older you get, reality gets even harder. I'm a young mom, so parenthood is a challenge that I've been facing right now, and a lot of the women that I work with are facing. We face, maybe discrimination in the workplace. We're kind of told a lot that it's just not really going to work out for us. We're told a lot about imposter syndrome, and we're told about how we're being discriminated against. It can be so daunting, and it can be so tempting to just say, like, okay, this is too scary. I have to stay out of the game. It's too much. And it's not only too much, I'm probably not going to win it anyway. And I see a lot of women do this, and the outcome is, of course, that if you're not playing the game, you're definitely not going to win it. And of course, the game is more complex than a black and white win or lose. So when we let those, it can be inner voices, but it can be outside daunting situation, stop us from really trying to do our best, from really fighting for what we want to do and what we want to be. That's just hugely to our detriment. And it's maybe the number one cause of what I see in women not fulfilling their potential when they go into negotiation. And it doesn't matter if you're negotiating for a salary or for a better role, or if you want to be better understood by your partner, if you want to have better friendships, just deciding to, or it's sometimes not even deciding, that's why I'm saying paralyzed by inaction. You're not in the game, and that game happens whether you're in it or not, and you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to fulfill your potential. Point number 2 is avoiding conflict, and this is something I myself, as mentioned, I have a master's in conflict resolution, and I had a very complex relationship with conflict along my life. So I was always sure that conflict was something bad, that we needed to avoid, we needed to solve. That's why I studied mediation as well. I kind of felt like this was the big bad wolf, and it's the cause of all problems in the world, and we really have to just try and solve it and put it away, mostly avoid it. Workplace, relationships, again, everywhere. I sort of saw it as something very negative. Until I realized that conflict is a motor. It's a motor for growth. It's a motor for development. It's a sign that you're standing up for yourself. It helps you solve something that you wanted to solve. It's part of the game. And though it can be very, very painful, especially in relationships, it can be very, very painful in a workplace when you're in a hostile environment, or if you just feel like you're constantly in pain out of conflicts that come up. This also leads us to that paralysis I talk about. So it's painful and we prefer to avoid it. But I try to think what I have a very young son. He's not even 7 months old yet. And I try to think what I would want to give him so that he could reach his potential. And it's that understanding that conflict happens and conflict is okay. And we as women shouldn't shy away from that conflict. We should step up to it. And we should use that as a tool of growth. We should see that as a path forward. Not even like, if it sounds like I'm saying it's just an obstacle, overcome it, ignore, move on. No, it does have to be solved. But it's a sign that something's changing. And so if we want to fulfill our potential, we need to embrace that conflict. And we need to think what we bring to the table that can help resolve it or can help develop it in a way that is good for us. So that's point number 2, avoiding conflict. And then point number 3 is fear the wonky. And this is really, I have to explain where this came to mind. I recently, so as part of my business, I'm constantly growing my skills and constantly growing not only, so group facilitation, great, I can do, and negotiation, great, I can do, but sales and marketing, and these were all things that I didn't know about. I'm not a salesperson at all. And obviously when you have your own business, it's something that you have to develop. You have to know how to do it. But I noticed in observing myself that I was so afraid that what I would do would come out imperfect, which it would for sure, because I have no idea how to do sales. And so the first few times I tried, it came out so wonky. I can't even tell you. Like, I kept thinking of the things that I could have said and the different kind of methods that I could have used and I didn't. And it was like that floppy first pancake over and over again. And it wasn't bad even, it wasn't terrible. It was just really wonky. It was awkward. It was, think of a child taking their first steps where it's not beautiful. It's not super aesthetic. But just like the conflict, that wonky means you're progressing. If you want to learn to do something, you have to go through the wonk. It will happen. And it will be painful, just like the conflict, and it will be kind of awkward. I know that I think many people can relate that, you know, if you're a perfectionist and you want everything to just be absolutely beautiful, you might be afraid to do something because it's not that perfect thing. You might tell yourself you're not good enough because it wasn't that perfect. But it is perfect. It's part of the process. It's a beautiful part of the process. And you know, if you try out for something that you aim to do, and you encounter that wonk, just be so proud of yourself. You know, you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're doing something new, and that's really, really the only way to actually achieve your potential. I really, really encourage everyone to embrace this, to think of it in those terms. I'm going to go back to unsharing my screen. Here's me back. These 3 points are something that have come up in my personal story many times over the years. And I feel like once I was able to figure out those 3 points and understand that those are part of my path, I was able to better help other women as well, because I knew that what I had to give to the world was much, much more important than the fine details. So when I embraced my wonk and I understood that conflict is growth, and when I decided to stop being paralyzed by the pure fear that I might not achieve my potential, that's when I was really able to give back. And that's when I was really able to be fully myself, to show up for myself, to take ownership on who I am and what I want to do. And that's all I have to recommend for you today. I actually wanted to leave a little bit of space for Q&A at the end of the session, because it's always very strange to me in this new world of Zoom where I'm talking at people. I love talking in groups and I love hearing what people are thinking. So I welcome you in the remaining few minutes. If you have any questions, it can be about this, it can be about negotiation, it can just be sharing your thought, it doesn't have to be questions at all. It can be sharing your wonky.
So I like I said on chat, I love my wonky. I'm so proud of it. A few years ago, I started to knit, and my first work was awful, like awful. But I was so proud of myself that I was able to do it. And yeah, every next piece was better.
Exactly. First step is always a floppy pancake. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Estera. Anyone, thoughts, comments, fears?
I'm just gonna give some comments. I do remember the person that I spoke to in one of the chats that we had before. It was someone just starting off on the IT world, and she was very concerned about like, oh, what if all the things that I've learned are not enough? And I think this is really your call for action. This is it. It's you're never gonna be 100% ready until you actually go and do it. That's where you actually get to learn all this stuff, all the juicy bits, really. So yes, fantastic talk. Thank you so much. I feel so inspired.
Thank you. And I agree absolutely with what you're saying. I mean, that process is how we learn the things. And many times we kind of try to, I call it like skill hoarding. Like we just feel like we're not ready yet. And we try to study another course and we try to kind of perfect what we're doing like read that email a 10th time or 11th time and rethink our phrasing. And it's not necessarily bad to be a perfectionist. I think it's important to embrace that part of us, but it's also important just to know, okay, let's get a little dirty. That's part of the game. That's the joy of the game, is not doing it perfect. So whatever game you want to make an analogy, Serena Williams wasn't born with a tennis bat in her hand, even though sometimes it seems like she did. I'm going to give like 10 seconds more of silence in case someone wants to chip in.
About like continuing the topic of first interview or first job. When you apply to junior position, no one expects you to be perfect, and no one actually expects for you to know all the answers. I think more important for people who will hire you is that you are keen to learn. You can learn. You are able to learn, and that you have this approach of exploring and learning.
And the wonderful thing is that I think most of us all of us, I really believe we're born whole, and so there's no necessarily need to fix us. We're all born with that curiosity, and we're all born, some of us it's beaten out of by society, that curiosity to join the game and figure out how it's done, and show up as ourselves in that quote unquote game. But we all have it, and if we kind of let ourselves and allow ourselves step into that, the results are always beautiful. And like I said, everything else is just details. Thanks very much for listening to me today. This is just it was a wonderful opportunity to connect with women making their way, and doing just what I'm saying. So really working hard at breaking boundaries and changing. I think tech, I myself am not a tech maker. I work a lot with women in tech, and I see it as something groundbreaking. I think what this community is doing is groundbreaking, and it's part of that taking ownership of our reality, is showing up and making the change that we want to have. So good job, organizers, Women Techmakers Berlin. And if anyone is interested in the field of negotiation, I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. I think it's a really great initiative that we're doing in the chat.
Thank you, Yasmin, for your talk. It was very inspiring. You have one question in the chat. Do you have any ideas to overcome when you feel like you're stuck, like in the first point you made?
Yeah. I have many ideas, and I think sometimes it really takes breaking down. What I try to do with the women that I work with is to break down where that fear is coming from. And sometimes they can be, I don't think any fear is unsubstantiated, but sometimes it's in our head. It's a fear that's been put there oftentimes by other people, or by ourselves. And then it's about diffusing that fear and understanding where it's coming from, like, oh, I think no one likes me. And then realizing that's clearly not the case. And then sometimes, these challenges, they're real fears. I can tell you as a working mom, you see women making huge sacrifices for their family, and just being so brave about it. At some point, there's 24 hours in a day. There's a limit to what you can do, and that's a real challenge. And so what happens when that's the case, I try to break down with the specific woman I'm working with. Okay, what are your tools? What do you have right now? What are you able to do? Okay, we diffuse things like anxiety or the strong emotions that come with it. You have X in your toolbox. Here's your challenge. What's the absolute best you can do with that? And how can I help you do it? Of course. So what I would say is like a first aid response. Try to understand where that fear is coming from. Try to map what your actual challenge is. And then understand that there's two ways to react to an obstacle. You can say, oh my God, I have to get from A to Z and there's a huge obstacle in my way. So I'm not gonna try and get to Z. But what I like to do, and what I think is more important to do, is to say, hey, there's an obstacle. I still have to get to Z. Let's break down that obstacle. And once you're able to shift the way you look at that obstacle as just another mountain to climb, just another challenge to face on your way. In fact, it should encourage you, like I should work harder because I know that I have that obstacle. And don't we all know that sometimes we face obstacles that we say, I'm gonna have to make 200% effort to get to where I want to. And I'm very much in favor of changing that 200% to maybe 150 or 100. That's something I also believe in, but it shouldn't deter you from giving what you need to give to get to that goal that you want to achieve. I'm happy to speak privately with anyone who wants to discuss like a specific case. I think it can be very helpful to reach out for support and hear your thoughts outside your head with someone who wants to break them down with you. So very welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or by email. I don't know if I should put my email in the chat if anyone wants to ask specific questions about specific cases. Just gonna, that's me. Feel free to connect. Were there any more questions in the?
No, there are no more questions. So we still have a few minutes left. If anyone wants to speak up or share something, or want to ask any questions in the chat, I can read them, or you can speak by yourself as well.
Okay, so interesting, because I thought I might have misunderstood the time slot. I thought I had 20 minutes. So if anyone has any questions about negotiation, this would be the time. Okay, I mean, I'm happy to talk about what I do in the day-to-day.
Yeah, no problem. So if anyone has any more questions, they can reach out to you. And thank you very much again for your talk. It was very inspiring and encouraging as well. Yeah, thank you very much for that.